are down to the final episode before the big race. We'll, of course, have a recap episode after the 100. Hopefully by now, though, you have made all your bike-related decisions. The big ones, that is. There's not much left to do but get some rest and visualize the starting line, the red carpet, and everything that comes between.
Everything that comes between. Just those 105 miles that come in between. We're not going to tell you in this episode to go replace your chain or buy a helmet or replace your chain ring. We're big fans of the nothing new on race day philosophy here.
But there is one small thing that is worth mentioning before you clip in on the second Saturday in August, and that is, are you able to clip in?
It's an important question. We're going to ask everyone to do something right now. Get your bike shoes, turn them over, look at your cleats. If you have been putting in the riding volume a lot of our listeners do, your cleats might be pretty well worn, and you still have time to swap in new cleats before race day.
Most everyone rides with Shimano SPD pedals at the Leadville 100, and for good reason. They just work. But if your cleats are worn out, there can be some slop in that foot-to-pedal connection. And you don't want that as you come down Powerline, Columbine, Sugarloaf, or St. Kevin's.
No, you do not. So again, check your cleats, replace them if needed, and even if they're looking good, check to make sure the bolts are good and tight.
And one bonus tip here, if you do need to replace those cleats, get in a couple of rides with them before race day. Clip in, clip out often during those rides, and make sure afterwards that the bolts have not worked themselves loose at all.
Yeah, your cleats are the least visible, most forgettable contact point you've got, but they are just as important as your other bike contact points, so be sure they're in good shape. Obviously, your Shimano SPD pedals pair great with Shimano SPD cleats. You're going to find more information on them at bike.shimano.com, but frankly, you'll also find Shimano SPD cleats at every bike shop in the country. And that is, again, for good reason.
And as always, a big thanks to Shimano for sponsoring this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Shimano. It is season 6, episode 25 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
I'm Fatty, and recording this episode, Hottie, is the last thing on my to-do list before packing and heading up to Leadville. Excited to say that.
Right, saying goes for me, Fatty. This is our final 5 episode, 5 top tips for racers, crews, and spectators. But first, Fatty, let's get an update on our annual listener ride, the week of Leadville. We'll be meeting Thursday, August 10th at 9 a.m. at the Ice Palace Park in Leadville. Google it if you don't know where it is.
Yep, and please ride your bike there because you will not be able to find a place to park. Guaranteed. We're going to saddle up right out of town, right to the base of the St. Kevin's climb. Some folks are going to want to keep going up to the hard left bend at St. Kevin's, and that is fine. I'm personally this year going to hang a U right where it starts to get steep and head back to the boulevard and up to the park. And I'm going to do all of that at a conversational pace, and I love talking and riding with folks. Once back at the park, we are going to hang out, talk about the race, and make Hottie record outgoing voicemail messages for anyone who wants one.
And like last year, our friends at The Feed have an awesome free giveaway for people who sign up in advance. Just go to thefeed.com/Leadville and then click the link to go to the form where you'll fill out your name, email, and your hoped-for finish time.
The first 100 people who sign up are going to get their own custom bottle waiting for them at this event, provided by The Feed. Your name and your target time are going to be printed right there on this cool black and gold bottle.
So again, thefeed.com/Leadville. Mark your calendars for Thursday, August 10th at 9 a.m. and Google Ice Palace Park, Leadville for the location. And The Feed won't be the only sponsor joining us either. DNA Cycling will be there in the form of Joe Sepulveda, CEO of DNA. He'll be wearing their new Mills Race Day jersey for this ride and is looking forward to racing the LT 100 for the first time a couple days later.
Yeah, he and I actually just got off a call, Hottie. We were talking about the race and he's going to be bringing some nice swag to hand out. He's going to be bringing a nice little tent for my crew to be under, which is going to be really nice. So, if you see a big DNA tent, you know that either Hottie or Blake is going to be under that tent. He's also going to be bringing some musette bags and socks and T-shirts from Thread and Spoke. And then I got down to business and I asked him, so, Joe, what do you want us to talk about in your promotion spot on the show this week? And Joe just said, just say DNA says thanks. Thanks to the show's listeners. So from DNA to all of you, thanks for supporting DNA Cycling, both this season and for the many seasons that DNA has supported the show.
Now, that might be the easiest spot ever. But, it's worth mentioning here that DNA makes amazing cycling gear for dirt and asphalt. That's why they have the DNA name. That's where it comes from. And it is a company of passionate cyclists like Joe. If you choose DNA Cycling for your next custom kit, you're going to get a great-looking, great-riding kit.
Yeah, and Hottie and I are going to be wearing our DNA custom kits at our listener ride and on race day. So if you'd like a closer look at DNA's work, just come say hi. Then go to DNAcycling.com, start working on your ideas, and be sure to tell them that the Leadville podcast sent you.
You're better than you think you are. You can do more than you think you can. Dig deep, dig deep.
All right, last episode was our LFAQ Super Show, and this episode is the tips we have gathered over 30 years of racing, the Leadville 100, along with 6 years of podcasting.
Yeah, this is going to be our 5 top tips for riders, for crews, and for spectators. 30 years of Leadville experience kind of boiled down to 15 tips.
Yeah, all the podcasts you've listened to this season, 24 so far, plus over 100, and we're just going to chalk it up to 15 things you need to go. And it's not like these are the only things you need to remember, but I do think everyone should remember all of these things. Anyway, let's start the first set of 5 tips. These are for the racers, 5 tips for racers. And I actually want to start with tip number 0, Fatty, because this is a tip we would have normally included in this list, that is, but no longer can. And that tip would be leaving a drop bag with bad weather gear for the Columbine turnaround.
Yeah, that's always been the cheapest insurance a racer could buy against possible sudden bad weather at 12,000 feet. A simple bag with gloves, a rain jacket, and so forth, just in case you're sent up Columbine, the weather starts changing on you. You don't want to rip down 8 miles of descent, cold and wet. That is a recipe for hypothermia.
Yeah, but according to the Leadville 100 website, there will not be a Columbine drop bag drop off, which means racers and crew need to think ahead starting at the Twin Lakes Dam or Twin Lakes alternate crew stations. If there is a chance the weather is going to turn bad, that is, you need to prepare yourself as if bad weather is a certainty.
That's right. If you've got a crew, this means have a little bad weather bag prepped and with your crew at the Twin Lake Dam aid station, something they can just easily stuff into your jersey pocket. A jacket, a beanie, a lightweight beanie, maybe a shower cap, latex gloves. It doesn't have to be much, but it does need to be enough to keep you a little bit dry and a little bit warm. You're going to be cold and wet coming down Columbine in a rainstorm, but you don't have to be hypothermic. And that is enough. You don't want to get pulled from the race.
Right. Again, that's no longer something you can send ahead and have waiting for you at the top of Columbine. It's now on you to be prepared with as you leave Twin Lakes Dam or Twin Lakes alternate.
Yeah. So that's an important tip 0. Let's go on to our actual regularly scheduled top 5 tips.
All right. Don't sabotage your finish by going too hard at the start. The gun goes off. Ken fires the gun. We're all hyped up. We all want to start pedaling our bikes because we've been standing there shivering at 6th and Harrison. We're trying to get out of town and get to Kevens as fast as we can. But this can be a big mistake, right, Fatty? Like if you start going too hard, and look, don't go back and look at what Hottie did. Hottie used to ride fast out of town because he was kind of a roadie, crit racer type, knew what to do in traffic, and I'd go pretty hard out of town. I think it pays to start your pacing plan as soon as you roll away from 6th and Harrison.
That's right. That's one of Rebecca Rush's, the Queen of Pain's big tips. Be fast by starting slow. It is so easy to be beholden to your adrenaline that you are going to have when that gun goes off and you just want to fly. And I mean, you can burn matches that you don't need to burn on St. Kevin's. Go smooth. If you're wearing a heart rate monitor, make sure that you keep it in a reasonable point in spite of the fact that you're at high altitude, and save your matches for the final quarter of the race. That's really the thing that I want to say. So that's tip number one. Next one, and this is one I learned this is a tip from the school of Hard Knocks, 15 years of Hard Knocks. Eat during the Columbine climb. It is so difficult once you get to 11,000 feet and you are breathing double or triple time to put anything in your mouth, and your stomach starts getting a little bit queasy and you are just so exhausted. And it is really easy to tell yourself, I'll eat in a minute. No, you stick to your eating plan, and it doesn't matter if you are pushing your bike, you still eat, whether it's every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes, whatever the plan is that you determined, you stick to it while you are doing that very difficult, very hard to breathe climb, or you will pay for it starting at about mile 60.
Yeah, you really need to pay attention to the timing that Fatty just mentioned, too, to start eating on the Columbine climb. Again, this is hard to do. It's probably one of the time you want to focus on gels. It can be even a little harder to do if you use Twin Lakes alternate, because you're much closer to the start of that climb, and so you probably have something freshly in your gut at alternate, and to start thinking about eating right away may not seem appetizing, especially as your breathing picks up, but it's really important. Like 20 minutes away from alternate or even less, if you can start doing a half a gel or something like that, right? It's going to help you out as you head for the turnaround. Again, as Fatty said, you're not eating for Columbine. You're eating for that power line climb going home, right? And you got to stay on top of your nutrition, as we've always talked about.
Yeah. The first half mile after Twin Lake Dam alternate, man, it is hard to eat there. So yeah, definitely, you might want to have something in your stomach there. After that, you want to keep eating at regular intervals along the Columbine climb. Let's talk about tip number 3, the power line. We've said before, I don't even know how many times, the rest of the Leadville 100 is just to soften you up for the power line. That is the whole shooting match, the power line climb. It has defeated me. It has defeated a lot of people. Here's how to defeat it instead. Remember the first half mile after you, and I'm saying, think of power line as starting after you turn off of the pavement onto the dirt. That first half mile is easy. It is really easy. I mean, it dips. You're going past a house and you are sort of churning. And then the next half mile you will never forget. You do sort of a sharp right hand or a left turn and then a right bender, and you are probably, unless you were one of maybe 100 people in the race, you're probably off your bike and you are pushing. And that half mile is just brutal.
I'll say this about the bottom of the power line climb is, if you are a walker, know that there's 3 power poles you're trying to count to, right? Just look up the hill, and you can, especially once you make it through the S-turns at the bottom of the thing, if you dismount anywhere in there, get around the S-turns, and then look up the hill. And if you plan on walking that, you're just trying to make it to that 3rd power pole, right? And then from there, it levels off a little, at least where you have a chance to get on. Of course, there's the grind over the top where it's much looser, but you'll have a spot to get on there. So 3 power poles, count them as you go up.
Absolutely. And then after you get past that part where it is, frankly, the hike-a-bike section of the power line, basically you've done the first mile of the power line, you can get back on your bike. The middle 2 miles, so basically mile 2 and 3 of the power line, are rideable, but very difficult, right? That is where the technical stuff is, where it gives you a little break and then it just punches you in the gut. It is hard, but it is doable. And then there is the final mile, the final of the 4 miles of power line. It is comparatively easy. And the final half mile is very easy, practically flat. So while we always say the power line is 4 miles, and you want to take a look at your GPS when you turn off the pavement and think, okay, I just got to get through this next 4 miles. The final half mile of that is actually not that bad. But keep telling yourself 4 miles, okay? And then you can be surprised and happy about that final half.
And if you do get off and walk, get off and walk with purpose. This is a Rebecca Rush tip, right? I mean, the point of this race is to keep moving. About the only time you're not is when you're standing there with your crew, but otherwise you want to keep moving. So if you do have to get off, the temptation is to maybe stop halfway up the lower section of the power line or anywhere and dawdle around a little bit or talk to somebody. We would say no, keep moving. Even if it's a snail, even if you're just barely putting one foot in front of the other, the point of this race is to keep moving forward.
I don't understand why the math works out that way, but it 100% does work out that way. That the only thing that really crushes your average is 0 when you are moving 0 miles per hour. Even 1 mile per hour doesn't hurt your average that bad. So yes, keep walking, walk with purpose, be stopped as little as you possibly can during this race. Okay, that is tip number 3, understanding the power line. Let's talk about the next one. Acknowledge and learn to ignore your demons. Everyone's going to have spend a little bit of time having conversations with a part of themselves that they don't necessarily like that much during this race, your demons. Here, the first one, and I'm gonna classify the demons. There's the I quit demon. This one's pretty obvious. Just the demon that generally has this to say to me: "What are you doing here? This is ridiculous. You have no business here." I have heard it give me, that quote 24 out of the 25 times that I've started this race, and I actually did not finish on the 25th. So it was, but there is, the fact is, it is easy to tell yourself, this is silly. What am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing here. Ignore that demon. You chose to be here. You paid a lot of money to be here. You spent a lot of time to be here. Be here and do it.
Yeah. I succumbed to that demon once myself. I was going backwards through the field fast. I thought, what am I doing here? And it got me. That demon got, and I've seen it happen to other people too, standing at crew stations. I mean, it's going to, there's going to be a percentage of the field that hears that person on their shoulder or that demon on their shoulder and goes, yep, you're right. I don't belong here. And out you go. It'll take advantage of you too.
So the next demon is what I'm going to call the sudden insights demon. This is a dangerous demon. Where you suddenly have this epiphany. You know what? The eating strategy, the drinking strategy I used the entire season and had planned on for this race, I made a mistake. What I really ought to be doing is just drinking clear water. I don't need electrolytes. I hate electrolytes. I don't need calories in my bottle. What am I doing with calories in my bottle? I'm just going to drink water. Gels. I hate gels. Why would I ever have started with gels? And you start having these aha moments, or suddenly like, what am I doing on my bike? I should be spending more time with my family. That's a perfectly legitimate insight for tomorrow. It is not a good insight for today while you are doing this race. You are racing stupid. It is not the time for you to go back on decisions that you made a long time ago. Today's the day to execute.
Yeah. Even if it gets really bad, we've heard of racers, pulling to the side of the trail. Allison Tetrick came on the show and said she was forced to the side of the trail with GI issues, but she did not get off her eating and drinking strategy. She just said, I just ate something or something went bad and now it's gone out of my system and I'm going to keep moving forward. So you've got a plan. You've worked hard on it. Unless it's odd, and it's odd, stick with it. Sports nutrition is quite advanced these days, and chances are you've mapped out a good plan.
Race day is not a day to come up with a new plan. It is the day to execute the plan you already made. And you might learn some lessons, for sure, but this isn't the time where you're going to have brilliant epiphanies, I guarantee it. Okay, last demon in this, our fourth tip, the anger demons. I've seen people, I have been one of the people who gets angry on the race at another racer or for unjustifiably at crew or spectators. You are in a very amped up place when you are doing this race. And you might see someone might cut you off. Someone might take a short pull or refuse to pull at all. And you get real angry. And That is the race talking. That is not you. Watch for that and don't give in to that. Be kind. This is one of the best things about this race is the part of Columbine where you are in very close quarters with other racers going up and down and shouting words of encouragement is the best thing that my best memory of this race. Make sure you're part of that energy as opposed to the energy where you are grumpy at your crew or angry at another racer.
Yeah, I've seen this especially happen outbound. As soon as people leave the start line and they're trying to wrestle their way up front, it can happen there. And then on the paved section between the bottom of power line and pipeline, pace lines that start falling apart generally don't go over well, and people can start yelling at each other. So be careful with that stuff because, you may or may not offend the other rider, but you're just, at that point, the negative energy is not doing you any good either.
No, it's not. It's not. Save your energy for something like pedaling your bike. Okay. And final tip, have fun. It is really easy to forget that what you are doing is a bucket list item, something that lots and lots and lots, hundreds, thousands of people would love to do the Leadville 100 and never get a chance. Whether you got in through the lottery or a qualifier or some other way, you are getting to do a bucket list race, and that is pretty awesome. Make sure you take a moment to enjoy it. Look around and think to yourself, I am doing the Leadville 100. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, think about all the people who didn't get into the race. They expect you to have fun. Otherwise, they'll take your spot happily, right?
All right, that's our 5 tips for racers. And now we're going to point you back for a second to our show on cooling off during the Leadville 100. If you got heated up, got angry at another rider, you might need to cool off. We had on Dr. Kevin Sprouse, the EF Pro Cycling Doc, who helped us understand how we can cool down from our core temperature during an event. That was episode 19 this season. In that show, Dr. Sprouse said a great way to cool down is drinking something cold.
Yeah, it seems obvious, right? The hard part is keeping liquids cold until you want them. Probably not at the start line, but as early as pipeline outbound, you may want to start getting cold drinks inside you. And for sure, by the time you get back to Twin Lakes. Lately, I have been drinking from the Bivo insulated bottle that is available from the feed. The Bivo Triple is a double-walled stainless steel bottle, and I can tell you this thing keeps liquids cold for hours. I've left it in my car on a 95-degree day, and I went back to my car to find my drink still cold. In fact, the ice cubes had not fully melted. This bottle comes in 2 sizes, 21 ounce and 17, and they are built to fit in water bottle cages. Yeah, they are heavier than plastic bottles, but it's an insulated bottle, and it's steel. That's what you kind of expect. At the very least, you could use it, though, if you don't want to put it in a bottle cage and carry it. You could use it for a cold drink during your feed stops, or carry it on the flat sections, like between Twin Lakes and Pipeline, to help turn down the internal furnace.
Yeah, I was just thinking that between Twin Lakes Dam and the Pipeline aid station would be a perfect place for it, where weight isn't as much of a deal as when you're doing the big climbs, and also the heat of the day has come on. That is a good place to drop your core temperature a little bit. Have a nice bottle that will, that will really refresh you, which you're going to need as you start the power line. The feed has the full line of Bivo bottles on its site, along with other insulated bottles from the likes of Camelback and Polar. Don't wait until after the race to have a cold one. Have something cold to drink on hand at your feeds or in your cages, and you can find these insulated bottles at the feed. Go to thefeed.com. In fact, let's make that thefeed.com/Leadville, and then you can claim your $80 annual credit at thefeed.com. And you'll be able to verify your name, your phone number, and then spend your first feed credit of $20 right away.
All right, let's go to the top 5 crew tips. Now, most of our listeners are racers, so our feelings won't be hurt if you pause this episode and bring your crew over to listen to this part.
You got to put on some hold music for a second while they go in. Okay. Or we can just timestamp it, I suppose. Regardless, there are things every crew should know about the racers on race day. Hottie, I want you to lead this out since you and your wife together have been what I'm going to call the best crew of all time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for that. There's a lot of good crews out there. But there's some stuff we all kind of have in common. And one of the first, and this is Rebecca Rush. She's always here with us, right? This is probably born out of what she told both Fatty and I, and that is the importance of shortening the length of time you are at a cruise station, right? When you're going 0 miles an hour, you are going 0. And that is not helping your time at Leadville. So one of the first and foremost things is get your rider in and out as quickly as you can. The longer your racer just stays put, the harder it is not only on their time, but the harder it is to get going. This is why you see pros take hand-ups, is they don't want to stop. They want to just keep moving. But for the rest of us, right, for the folks who are not pros, we probably need to pit, stop, see our crew, get reloaded. You just want to make this as quick as you can because as your racer is standing there, the lactate's just building up at their legs. The great thing about pedaling a bike, even though it's for 100 miles or more, it does hurt, but as long as you're still moving your legs, like you're still flushing things in and out. When they stop, stand still, that stuff just starts building up. And especially as they're looking up towards the Columbine climb, really important to get them fed quickly, give them a good push, and send them on their way as fast as you can.
I remember back in the old days, before I ever got a sub-9 finish, when I pulled into the aid station, I would get off my bike and I would sit down in a lawn chair
Yeah.
or, in a camp chair, and it felt way too good. I would sit there and I would eat part of a sandwich and I would drink most of a Coke and I would start thinking of excuses to sit there just a little longer. I remember one time in particular, it was a year my mom was crewing for me. And she was like, shouldn't you be getting on that bike again? And I was like, just 3 more minutes. And I was just reliving the just 5 more minutes mom experience. Honestly, every rider who gets off their bike and starts resting, falls prey to the metaphorical equivalent of an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Physics, truth, right? Don't ever, don't unclip both feet when you are riding. And crew people, keep your racers, their stops to a minimum. They will thank you at the finish line. I promise.
So tip 2 directly relates to tip 1 there. And that is tip 2 is to have a plan. And to have that plan, right, you want to lay everything out and make sure you can execute that plan properly. And what we do, and what I started doing actually before I even started crewing for Fatty, is having a little team meetings, little crew meetings sometime before the race. Thursday is ideal if you can get your stuff together. Friday obviously works because, that's when the race is upon you and you kind of know what feed zones you're going to go to. We sit down with each racer, Mrs. Hottie and I. We both take notes on what they want to get rid of out of their bike, what they want to be refueled with, what they want when they're standing still. We take rough notes as we talk to them. We get them to package everything up into individual bags, both inbound or outbound, and then inbound. Everything's labeled, and we want them to be. We demand our racers to be very specific, and that way, we know when they pull in exactly what to do with them. As each rider's different too. If you're doing multiple, and if you're doing one rider, it's a little easier. But if you're doing 2 or 3 riders, you're going to want to write everything down. And you're going to want the rider to be specific with their crew as to what they want. So we actually have little crew meetings. Once they go off and go to bed, Mrs. Hottie and I sit down and look at our notes and we rewrite them so, they're neat. They're not scribble like I like to write. And so we can read them and execute our plan. So again, plan out. Have a crew meeting if you can. And ideally, too, part of that meeting would be for at least the crew members and maybe a racer to go out to your feed zone and have a look at it too, especially if you've never been there. So plan ahead.
Yeah. And I will say that the crew meeting, which we generally have a nice little dinner ahead of time to make it, a nice social event as well as a important meeting, is one of my favorite traditions, right? It is the time when We are visualizing the day, and we are talking about our best possible and our, worst possible time that we might be coming in. And anything that I have not thought of, generally Hottie or Mrs. Hottie will ask about, and I'll be like, oh yeah. And it is a time when uncertain things become certain. And it is very important, not just for the crew, but for the racer.
Yeah. Smorgasbords just don't work in my mind at crew stops. If you just lay food out and let the rider choose what they want, they're going to end up killing time, wasting time at the crew station. That's why it's important for them to lay out their feeds the night before. That way you know how to execute. Yeah, you want to be ready for emergency. Like if they come in and go, I've been throwing up, or I hate this, or whatever, you're going to want to be able to deal with that. But ultimately, you just want to hand them the next musette bag or the next feed bag and stuff it in their pockets and send them on the way. Okay. Tip number 3. This is a short and easy one and hopefully obvious, and that is be easy to find. Both rider and crew member. I mean, obviously during your crew meeting, you're going to ask your rider, what will you be wearing? What color is your helmet, your bike?
Your race plate number.
What wave you're coming from, your expected time, what time should I expect you to be coming through? And then the crew member, too, should share with the rider, here's what I'm going to be wearing. And hopefully it's some type of bright color. Like I wear our bright, highlighter yellow Leadville podcast jersey. And so I'm easy to find. And I get out in the lane, too. I mean, what I try to do is look down trail and spot my rider as they're coming, or, riders, but hopefully they're coming in at one at a time. And then get ready out on, for instance, I like to stand on Lost Canyon Road at Twin Lakes Stadium Alternate and start waving them in. Let them know where you are so they can just aim their bike, or if they're in traffic or with other riders, they can see you early on and try to, not hit some other rider as they're moving over. This can be especially a problem if you're standing, or if your crew station's on the double track. They're at Twin Lakes Dam Alternate. That's a little tighter in there. And if your riders are really kind of in the back of the pack, you might have fast people coming through, right? Going back inbound. So you really want to alert your rider to where you are and make sure you're wearing something that they can see easily so they can pull in and execute the stop we just talked about.
Yeah. And something you did last year that it turned out was really helpful to some of the racers was the day before you took a picture of where you were setting up the pop-up tent. You can do that at Twin Lake Dam Alternate. You cannot do that at Twin Lake Dam or the little dirt road that I don't even know what to call it, the pre-Twin Lake Dam aid station area where you can set up. But at Twin Lake Dam Alternate, the night before or day before, you can set up your tent. That's another little bonus tip there. But you took a picture of where it was and sort of a perspective from what the rider would see as they were coming up. And you sent that to each of the racers. Since not every racer was able to join you, they knew where your spot was going to be. Right. That was incredibly helpful.
I think we pasted off from the corner, too. We were on Lost Canyon. I told them like how many yards it was up Lost Canyon Road from the right-hander there. So they kind of got a good idea where to look for me. And then you make yourself obvious, and then, boom, they're able to pull over quickly. And I think at Pipeline, too, you can do, again, you can't set up at Pipeline early, but if your crew goes down there, and this leads into our next point, our point number 4, if your crew can get to Pipeline early enough, and you've scouted it maybe the day before, you can kind of tell your rider, here's where I plan on being. And obviously, they're going to see you, if you're there early enough, as they go outbound, and she'll be able to get an eyeball on you and see, okay, that's where they are, and they'll know inbound where you are, too. So it's possible at Pipeline, too, to let people in advance know where you'd like to be, which gets us to tip number 4, and that is, Pipeline, Twin Lakes. Can I cover both? This is a huge topic of discussion, both in our Slack channel and the Facebook participants page. Can I cover both? I only have one crew member. Can you? Yeah, you can do it. It is possible. You need to develop a little insurance plan, like maybe you have a drop bag at Pipeline as well, in case your crew member is not able to double back to Pipeline and meet you there. It is possible. But what Fatty and I like to do, and what I've done with other teams as well, is employ the team strategy, right? Go out there and cover somebody with Pipeline, have another crew member up at Twin Lakes, and ideally you have somebody at the start line too. And then that person, once the race starts, is free to go to either Pipe or to Twin Lakes if they want to. So split up crews if you can. If you're don't have the family to do that, or the friends to do that, maybe you partner up with another racer and see if you could put their crew at Pipeline while you go to Twin Lakes. And that way you've got, look, I know some people go, well, I'm just going to ride to Twin Lakes all the way outbound and not take a feed at Pipeline outbound. Okay, that's doable. I don't like to do that. I don't like to carry that much weight, and that's doable. But if you come off the power line and you've had a problem, right, what's the first thing you run into? You run into Pipeline. That's what you run into. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody there who knows you and maybe has a tool that you need or a spare wheel or something you need? Yeah, there's neutral there. They may or may not be able to help you, but man, it'd be great to have somebody there. So if you can, I know this is going kind of above and beyond maybe what you thought about going into the Leadville 100, like splitting up crews and putting them at different stations, but it can help you. Not only that, somebody at Pipeline can start texting ahead, provided the cell service is holding up, and let people at Twin Lakes, let the crew at Twin Lakes know that, hey, they're on their way. This was their time. Here's how far they are behind the leader, or here's the time split between, if you're covering two riders, Fatty and Lisa the Hammer, right? All that stuff can really help.
Yep. Zone defense, baby. It's the way to go.
Yes, I like that. That's the term I was looking for, zone defense. You've always got me on that one. Zone defense. Run your zone defense. Or aren't we on the offense here? I would hope we were trying to take the ball.
I don't know. I don't know enough about sports to know whether zone offense is a thing.
Okay, enough of those metaphors. Let's get to point number 5. Don't take anything horrible your racer says. Don't take that stuff seriously. They're going to come in, pretty pumped up. Maybe something's gone wrong. They may try to unload on you. It's cool. It's fine. Let them vent if they need to vent. Especially if they're maybe they're about to miss a time cutoff, or they're worried about that type of stuff. They had a flat. I mean, things can go wrong.
It's the demons talking, man. It is. Oh yeah, it is not the racer. I'm just saying this as someone who has been at his worst during a race and felt terrible about it afterward.
This is Hottie. He has all kinds of war stories, especially on the road racing scene. When I was doing a lot of road races there, there was a lot of hand-ups going on. We'd do, 60, 70, 80-mile races, and we'd come around, we'd do laps, and there'd be hand-ups. And she said, oh, my God, this one guy came through, and he threw his bottle at his wife and yelled expletives, and it's just no way to be. I mean, really, it's not. As a racer, racers got to try to keep their cool, but if they don't, like if they do have a little explosion on you, it's cool. Don't worry. They're a little race dumb, as Fatty likes to say at that moment. And on the flip side, Fatty, something I kind of made note of after last year is I thought, I could have been a little calmer when Fatty came in. Now, I know you gave me kudos for being cool and stuff like that, but I thought, I think I want to lower my heart rate too as my racer comes in and just exude calmness and confidence and kind of solidity, right? And give them hey, man, good. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're safe. More than, oh, come on, let's change everything out. As opposed to being frantic, you want to be more, I think, even keeled.
Yeah, you're the rock. There is, your racer is going to be kind of dumb, race stupid, as I like to say, and probably a little frazzled, may not be thinking remotely straight. You are their rock. You are their anchor. You are the one who is actually thinking straight. So, like Fatty, or like Hottie says, be calm. Take care of what both they think they need and that you can tell that they actually need, and get them on their way.
All right, those are our 5 crew tips. Get them in and out fast. Have a plan. Be easy to find. Run zone defense if you can, and don't take anything personally, either from the racer or from the crew member as you come into the pit. All right, here's another crew tip. Have a set of Envy M5 wheels standing by. Now, that's pro-like preparation, right? But not exactly practical.
No, I mean, that's a dream scenario. But yeah, most people are going to have one set of M5s if they're lucky. Not many of us can afford to have 2 sets of M5s on hand. Hopefully, you do have one set and they are on your race day bike when you line up at 6th and Harrison. Mine are going to be under me, of course, with fresh tubeless tape and valve cores installed.
What else with the Envy logo will you have mounted on that bike, Fatty?
Oh, mercy. Wherever I can. I'm going to be riding with M6 bars. I prefer those over the M5s because I do like to really use the bars for leverage when I stand and climb. Also, I have the riser bar version of those, so they're a little higher. With my recent C2 to C5 fusion, it lets me sit up a little more upright, takes pressure off my spine, as does my Envy stem, which I have flipped into the positive rise direction. I am using an Envy carbon seat post. That takes the edge off the vibration, and it is completely trustworthy. I've had a post fail on me at Leadville, but it was not Envy, I will say.
Yeah, I have that Envy post too. I've had it since Envy has been connected with the show. It has never creaked, and the clamp has never slipped.
Yeah, it is probably a little late to start swapping out parts, but if your wheels, your bars, your stem, your seat post are not living up to your expectations, sit down after Leadville, go to the Envy website, and start planning up your upgrades. The best carbon wheels and components can be found at Envy. That is ENVE.com.
All right, our final top 5 tips are for folks watching the amazing show called the Leadville 100. Once again, that's not our normal audience, but we figure many of you are bringing someone along who either have no duties or fairly light duties on race day. Folks who are there just to watch and cheer on the normal people in this incredible race.
And we have some good tips, though, frankly, I've never been a spectator of this race. So I am speaking more from the perspective of, as a racer, this is what I think spectators ought to do. So your mileage may vary. Let's go with the most obvious one. And I will say this as a racer, no spectators cheer goes wasted. Every racer, I think, gets an amazing boost from a spectator who takes a moment to tell them that they are doing great. They are on track. They are looking good for a sub 12. Whatever you have to say, shout it out. It does not go wasted. It gives me an extra 10 feet of speed.
Yeah, racer to racer, cheering can mean a lot, especially like on the Columbine climb. I love that. But man, it's so cool when you roll through any of the feed zones or any area where there are people on the side of the road and they're just there to hand out encouragement, like free of charge. They're like, here, racer, go for it. Like it's pretty damn cool how people can just be so generous with their encouragement like that. So it does help. Don't give them the silent treatment. Get out there, offer some encouragement. It really does work. Let's go to Twin Lakes Dam. Speaking of encouragement, this is a pretty special place. I've never crewed on the dam itself, always at alternate, but the dam is always, one big party scene, right? And it's an amazing spot. If I was a spectator, would I go to the dam? I don't know. I might go to alternate anyhow because I just love it up there. But it is a giant party there, right? I mean, atmosphere is great. The racers kind of love rolling through there. They stop if they have to, if they have crew members. So Twin Lakes Dam, good place to go and just hang out and be part of the scene if you really want to kind of take in all that is Leadville in a compacted form.
Yeah. If you have ever been to most mountain bike races, you see that there are just a few spectators out there. Going to Twin Lake Dam and being part of the spectator scene there is like going to the Alpe d'Huez at the Tour de France. It is crazy. It is jam-packed. The enthusiasm is extraordinary and positive and wonderful. It is really, I would say, the most energetic spot in any mountain bike race that I have ever seen. I look forward to and love crossing the dam every single year. The wave of yelling and energy and clapping and cowbells. Wow, it just I can be feeling pretty tired by the time I've done that first 40 miles, but you cross the dam and you feel like you are starting fresh. And being part of that scene as a spectator, I can only imagine that it must be pretty fantastic.
Okay, tip number 3 as part of your, dishing out the encouragement, the enthusiasm. How about something to help with that? And that would be a cowbell or any type of noisemaker that's, kind to the ear. I don't think you want something annoying, but like I would stay away from air horns. That might scare somebody. But I love those. God, what are those? those big blowhorns.
Those big bugles. I don't know exactly what they're called.
Oh, I forget what they're called. Those are great. I love hearing those things. A cowbell's not bad too. I mean, they're great. I mean, they work in any cycling event. And there's actually a practical reason for this. A good point you brought up, Fatty. You're going to get hoarse. Like if you just sit around and yell all day
for 10 hours,
you're going to be raspy at the end of the day. So yeah, bring something that makes a little noise, right?
Yeah, go. You're at an Airbnb. Just grab a couple of their pots and pans. They won't mind. Bang those together for 7 or 8 hours. It'll be just fine. Right? Okay. Here's the next one. I love doing this one because it allows me to be both in addition to a racer, a spectator. Hang out at the finish line from 6:30 p.m. In other words, the 12-hour mark for when the race began, to 7:30, which is when the 13-hour finishers cross the finish line. I tell you what, that is when you are going to see people who have extended themselves to beyond and then into the next county. They have really dug to a place where you can't even imagine, and they are crossing the finish line. I tell you what, there aren't as many people out there at the finish line then, and the racers are smoked beyond all reason, and it is an awesome sight. So yeah, get on Harrison, get that cowbell and go crazy for the folks who are really, really putting themselves out there, finishing the Leadville 100.
In particular, watch the clock, and we're talking about time of day, for 6:50 p.m. Because that is that 12-hour cutoff for your folks in the White Corral. And so a lot of like first timers and people were like, didn't know if they could even finish or just kind of hoping to buckle. Well, that is their official cutoff time. So you'll probably see some pretty dramatic final efforts up 6th Street right there, right about 6:50 p.m. Watch for that. I stand at the finish line quite a bit now these days, waiting for Fatty and Melissa and Lisa and the whole, Fatty crew to come in. And so I get a chance to see the last of the sub-9s come through, and then, all the folks in between 9 and a lot later in the day. And it's all drama. Like, it's all pretty great. Brandon Dyksterhouse came across, very fast guy, but had one of the moments of the race because there was this kid like walking up the red carpet with him as he, finished off the race that day. So there's all kinds of great drama at the finish line. People you probably never heard of, don't know, but it's all great. But especially, as Fatty said, those folks just trying to get home, just trying to get a medal or whatever, those are the heroes of this race.
Oh, yeah. Such a pleasure to watch those. And then here is the fifth one in our tips for spectators. If you want to see something pretty amazing, go to a part of the course that a lot of people don't go to. And I have a few suggestions. One place where I never see any spectators is the place where racers actually cross the 100-mile mark. It's the race is 105 miles long now, through various course changes and whatnot. But as racers on the way back in cross the railroad tracks on Turquoise Lake Road, CR9, they are at the 100.0 mile mark, and they are turning right. There will be a course marshal there and probably nobody else. Having a spectator there yelling out or ringing a bell because they have just done 100 miles on a mountain bike race, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. There's a parking lot there too. That's a good point, Fatty. Like, I don't remember. That was kind of a moment in time. You're like, 100 miles, cool. And there's nobody there to cheer you on. Where you do see them is like right where you come off the pavement then and go back into dirt, the area I like to call the gutter before you get to Boulevard. There will be like a few people standing right there. But yeah, let's get some people down to that section right near the railroad tracks and cheer on your 100-mile, which, of course, they call it the Leadville 100, but and I know and everyone else knows you got a pretty good distance to go, and a lot of it very difficult. And you could use a little encouragement right there. Another great spot is, you'll see some people here too, is, Turquoise Lake Road between May Queen and Carter And regular listeners to the show know that if Hottie has demons, if Hottie has negative thoughts, a lot of them creep up between May Queen and Carter inbound. That section, I could really use some help. I could really use just anybody there, a squirrel, a dog, anything that shows sign of life and that they're, happy for me going up that section. Outbound, we do see, Fatty, I think we see people hanging at the Hagerman turnoff there. Another good spot, although it's early in the race, you're already jacked up anyhow, right? So you probably don't need a lot of encouragement. And sometimes coming home, you will see folks standing at that corner too. But that climb up to Carter is the spot where many of us suffer or rather hear those questions in our mind. What the heck am I doing here, and why am I not rolling faster?
It is such a short distance. It's 3 miles or so on pavement, but you're 90 something miles into this thing, and you've just got the power line behind you. There is no racer who is feeling great at that moment, and appreciation for spectators is double or triple what it normally would be. If you bring a Dixie cup with a little bit of Coke in it, it gets factorially more grateful, at least from me. So, and I'm moving slow enough as I make that climb that I can easily take the hand up. Whereas, other times, if I'm going 17 miles an hour, I'm probably going to miss. So anyway, yes, absolutely. That is another great spot. Here is one last one. I would say that third and fourth mile up power line. You see a lot of people lining the course on the first mile of power line, the second half of the first mile, where lots of people are having to push their bikes. But it is after that I am generally cramping, and the day has gotten hot, and I could use a little bit of love. And if there were someone with a cowbell on the third mile, and even better, a cowbell and a cold drink of Coke. I know I'm fixating here on cold Coke, but anyone who's ever been on this course on a hot day knows what I'm talking about. It is an amazing thing. I tell you, if you have the legs for it and the time for it, and the back for carrying up an ice chest, you will be many racers' favorite spectator on the course.
Yeah, we see a good number of people on the lower section when we're going inbound there. A lot of helpers there, people offering pushes and so forth. That upper section, though, where it gets a little more forested, the trees come in a little closer around the rider. You don't see as many people up there. Harder to get up there, obviously, even on foot. So any help would be appreciated. There might be a waiver. It sounds like they might have waivers for people too to access the property. There's a private property owner that has just been forced into asking for waivers. Leadville Race Series has agreed with this. Like they just have to watch people as they go up there. So you may be required to sign something to get up there. But anyhow, it's all worth it. Get up there if you can. In fact, Fatty, if I ever get a chance, and I hope to, just to go back as a spectator, that's exactly where I'm going. I'm going up to that more of those upper sections that you talked about of the power line climb and hanging out there. Hopefully my guitar skills will get better. I'll play guitar and help people get up the road.
Oh, I love that idea. You remember this was in one of the Leadville movies. The guy with the banjo at the base of the power line. I actually went by that guy as he was playing the banjo, and I mean that was awesome. Yes, bring in acoustic guitar, or I don't know if there's a way to bring in electric guitar and rock out for the racers. That would be an amazing spectacle of a spectator. Man, some great ideas here. Of course, other spectators are going to have their own ideas, but just reinforcing the first point, no cheer goes wasted. Thank you, every spectator who comes out and, puts their energy into this race, but because, boy, do we racers need it.
Hear, hear. We'd love to be there one day, just watching riders make their buckle dreams come true. And we hope that you make that climb inbound, and the one to Carter 8 and the one up the boulevard to the red carpet as well.
Hottie, this is why we do the show, to help everyone get back to merrily and to the finishers' medals, and hopefully you will be picking up a buckle as well. By the way, like last year, those buckles will be issued in the finisher shoe.
All right, let's put a bow on this one. Episode 25. If you like this show, go to wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating and write a review. To see all the ways you can find this independent show, it is leadville.fm.
Good luck in your recovery rides, all of your recovery. Thanks so much for listening, and we're going to see you in just a couple of weeks at the starting line.